channel where we present various shows and podcasts and videos. And this is the No Man's Land podcast where we discuss the Batman mega arc from the late 90s. And my name is Vincent, and I'm joined by two co-hosts.
Michael.
Well, I'm Michael. You're Mike for the show's purposes.
It's the double mics. Today, this is kind of it's a bonus episode of sorts. I kind of discovered after the fact that, hey, there's this issue, which is kind of related, kind of not related, and we'll delve deeper into that as we go along. But I have no idea precisely when this is supposed to take place. So rather than retroactively call it like episode 4.5 or something, we're just going to say this is bonus episode number 1. And due to the fact that we're doing that
we should go with the new Marvel order of numbering. Call this episode A.
Yeah. But because we're doing this format with this episode, other future ancillary episodes we might do, like we might call it bonus 2. Doesn't really matter. This is Batman Bullock's Law. This is an oversized one-shot, 55 pages of story, more or less. Written by Chuck Dixon, art by Flint Henry. I think we saw Flint Henry in the very first episode. I think he did the dream or fantasy sequences of the guy who got arrested by Batman or whatever right before the quake hit. It's again not entirely clear where this takes place, but there's references to after the quake, but it's not full on No Man's Land yet. And also this is kind of relevant that we're doing this double recording because it opens with Bullock and Montoya arresting a false facer. But again, this is beforehand, so he's not all, mutilated and scarred without the mask, like the Mosaic arc from the previous episode. And then to another crime scene, there's a serial killer called the Widow Whacker, and he's killing senior citizens. It seems to be mostly women. I mean, he's called the Widow, not Widower Whacker. And it turns out the victim was an old Hollywood actress from the kind of the transition from the silent era to the talkies, which gets us to the point where we learn that Harvey is secretly a big cinephile. He loves watching old movies at home and going to the theater. And I don't know if this is new to this issue. I feel like I've seen that before somewhere else, but that may have been picking up from the instruction here. And Harvey is forced to go to the doctor, the police doctor, and he's basically really fucking unhealthy. And he's given 30 days to get healthier, or he might be forced to retire. And right as he's having a crisis, as he's tempted by all kinds of things that are not healthy for him, he's tased and nabbed by Black Mask and his guys. And Black Mask here is still basically in his pre-crisis look, where he's a little bit wider shouldered. The mask is chunkier. It looks, I don't know how to describe it. It looks a lot more metallic and actually like a mask. And I prefer this design.
Pro from G.I. Joe.
Yeah. I actually prefer this design way more over the design, which I think either comes in during War Games or possibly came in during some Brubaker Catwoman stuff, which precedes War Games. But eventually Black Mask gets the look where, and it's explained somewhere in story where like he has a different mask and it gets fused to his face differently. But eventually he basically just looks like he's walking around he's basically the Red Skull, but black. That's really what Black Mask ends up, his redesign ends up being. I don't know. Do you guys have quick thoughts on for Black Mask designs?
This looks fine. I like his look. I like the more like mask where it's like kind of like this creepy smile. I thought he actually looked great, but it's not Roman Sionis, but when it was Jeremiah Arkham during the Tony Daniel run on Batman when Dick Grayson was Batman, I thought his look there was really great. There's this glorious splash page of him standing on a gargoyle exploding a bunch of buildings in Gotham City, and he's got this very creepy smile on the mask. That's my favorite Black Mask design. Is he's kind of just wearing this like gray suit with this black overcoat with like a white tie. That's my favorite design. But personally, I don't think he has a bad one.
Yeah.
The one in Mosaic was not good, but because I couldn't really tell he was wearing a mask.
Well, he's not. That's when that's their whole
His face.
He tells Batman take off the mask, and so all of his people have removed their masks and they're all mutilated and stuff. I think part of it is Black Mask. I think he's a Jerry Conway creation. He was a major factor. I mean, obviously he's a major factor in War Games. Like that's his modern central story. But he was a major recurring and relatively new villain in the kind of immediate pre-crisis era, like Jerry Conway and Doug Monk. Those like 2-3 years. And again, and I think part of it is that a lot of that stuff for a long time wasn't reprinted. And I think his major stuff is in Monk, and that has not been reprinted yet. But I think Black Mask is kind of underrated Batman villain. But I think War Games kind of drags him down because his biggest story, not his very controversial story, and not entirely related to like Black Mask's involvement. It's more like editorial and some of the plot stuff. At least that's my take. Black Mask gives Bullock a disc full of evidence on other villains and crooks and criminals. And he's like, hey, this is going to be a big deal for you. Just don't come after my people. Also, you have to squash this case. And that was the false facer in the beginning of this issue. And Bullock plays along with the game. He runs up several big deal cases. Batman gets word of this, and he's like, something's weird here. So he interrogates him. And there's some really wild, I'm going to attribute it mostly to the coloring, but it could be in the pencils as well. There's some really wild like coloring and texture details on Batman's cape and cowl in this first entry point to this issue. And then when he shows up later, the same kind of idea, but it's a little less prominent. It almost looks like he's got like stripes or like weird ass designs in his cape. There's this one page which I like oddly like of Bullock eating an apple in the pouring rain, and there's no dialogue or anything. It's literally just like nothing happened on the page. I mean, it's really showing a passage of time, but I kind of like that page a lot. And he ends up getting a pig mask, and he leans on one of Black Mask's rivals, another gang, busts them up, takes their money, gives it to the church, and then he has Batman somehow is able to tip off Batman, or at least put Batman on the right path so that Batman's detective skills allow him to get the Widow Whacker. And then hints to the Widow Whacker that the mask's turned on him. So he's kind of pulling all the strings before the strings are pulled on him. Doesn't end up rigging the trial. And then, that was not smart. So the masks abduct him. Then he lures them to something, promising them that, hey, last minute thing, I got something for you guys. Lures them into another gang, to the other gang. So it's a big firefight. Bullock gets really injured, and it turns out earlier he had one of his PD guys run the record on someone unnamed. And through most of the story, you just assume it's, one of these masked guys, the other gang, someone in the trial. but it's actually the doctor. And the doctor has tons of unpaid parking tickets, like out the ass. And so Bullock then uses that leverage to prevent his forced retirement and gets congrats from the Batman. And there's not really, I mean, he gets the leverage on the doctor and everything, but the arc of him like trying to get healthy and everything actually doesn't advance at all. There's no progress shown on that level. But maybe he's slightly working towards it. Like he starts ordering diet soda and doesn't want butter on his popcorn, but he's still eating tons of donuts and everything. Basically, it's just a overly long, not overly long, a long spotlight on Bullock, who I think all of us have agreed has been one of the best characters in this whole No Man's Land era so far. Lots of standout moments with Montoya or without. I think Flint Henry's art both like works, but it's also not the greatest to look at here. Whenever he appeared for like that sequence of that first issue, we were very critical of him. I think he looks different here. I don't know if it's inking and coloring. This whole issue is inked by Tom Palmer, who's one of the greatest inkers of all time, and coloring slightly different here. There's a lot of close-ups like on his nose or his chin where he's just straight up repulsive, which I guess is some of that is intentional because it's all, part of the through line of the story is that he's unhealthy and he just manages to be a badass cop somehow besides that. But again, that's effective for what they're going for, and a lot of the other art I found pretty great. So that's kind of my spiel, and if I think of other stuff, I'll bring it up. But what did you guys think of Bullock's Law?
I really enjoyed this. This is kind of great, kind of a hidden. I'd say definitely a hidden gem. So if you're at a shop and you see it there on a spinner rack or like buried in long boxes, pick it up and give it a try. I thought it was really, really enjoyable. It's 55 pages, but I thought it read pretty fast. And like I said, it was kind of high energy and fun. There's some hijinks in it, but I think it's a great capture of who Harvey Bullock is in 55 pages. And if you like Harvey Bullock, there's not a lot of solo Bullock or Bullock-centric stories out there, so it's kind of a great little thing to have in your collection. I thought Flint Henry's art was okay here. I thought it fit for the energy of the book and the way it went about itself. I think the coloring was pretty good too, where we've been seeing these like very muted grays and darks, so it was actually a welcome thing for me to see some color back in these books, especially the scenes where he's walking around at night and we see the neon signs still lit up and stuff. I thought that was a kind of a great sequence there where he gets zapped by the taser. But yeah, the sequences where he was on his couch alone watching movies kind of reminded me of Lethal Weapon. There's a little bit of that kind of him and Riggs going on there. There's also some scenes where he's got some long hair that looks like Martin Riggs. I don't know if that was intentional as well, but I think there's some great fun character moments here with Gordon and Montoya, and even Batman. Though I will say Batman looks terrible in this book. Like it's bad. But my favorite sequence of the book was when the guy in the frog mask is visiting him in the movie theater. I just thought it's funny with Bullock trying to watch this movie in a theater as he's got this guy in a frog mask and leather jacket behind him. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Really, really fun, and a great capture of a kind of missed Batman supporting character.
Yeah, I agree. It was a fun story. I like Bullock. It's always good to see more of him. It's funny he hasn't been in a movie yet, but him and Leslie Tompkins are like big Batman allies who haven't really shown up in the movies, but they get
Well, we
great.
haven't even got Nightwing yet, so
Yeah, really. So, even though like, there's been so many Batman movies at this point, a lot of big characters haven't made it too. But yeah, Yeah, this is a fun issue. I do remember an earlier episode of the Bullock being a cinephile thing came up because there was the one where they're trapped in the hospital, and he was saying it reminded him of like Assault on Precinct 13, and they mentioned I think Rio Bravo, like an old western that inspired it or something. So I think that would have been after this, I think, because but yeah, I'm guessing that might have been introduced here and then referenced there, or but so yeah, that's just a neat low background thing on him. I kind of thought maybe they would go more into the the fact that the murder victim was like an old time actress who he was a fan of, but I mean, I think we probably got enough of that with like him watching her movies and like he wanted to get the guy and all that. So there was probably the right touch of that in there. The frog mask guy was a funny touch. Batman looked weird, but
Yeah, and
also the guy looked so he looked really scruffy the whole time, but then in court he's suddenly like completely clean shaven and his hair is neater. All that, like, and the artist did a good job of cleaning him up and showing a contrast there.
yeah,
So, yeah, it
Bullock
was a fun
getting
issue.
Bullock getting the pig mask is fun as a as a cop and everything. Yeah, I think this was really a great showcase of all kinds of facets of Bullock's character. And yeah, as we said, Bullock and Montoya really the like super underrated characters of the Bat family. Well, not Batman universe. Um, yeah, this was I do not even well. Here's the other thing. Let's quickly touch on how relevant this is to No Man's Land, which is to say, basically not at all. There's like one reference of after this.
Not at all. But a very fun 55-page bonus episode, I will say.
Yeah, like there's reference to the quake, but it doesn't seem to affect the GCPD's operations or any of these cases at all. But this was, regardless, a totally worthy detour to me in terms of quality and everything. So that's that. Thanks for watching this bonus episode. And next week, we have some exciting stuff planned. Totally out of the ordinary, not really. Next week, we're kind of covering, I believe, basically 4 one-shots, as each of the series kind of pulls away from focusing on arcs. So, but I know we're going to have some Alfred action. We're going to have Zaz, and we're going to have a very unexpected guest appearance. And I'm not even going to say it here. So you have to tune in next week to see that. Tell your friends, tell your mom to watch No Man's Podcast on the Students of S.H.I.E.L.D. YouTube channel, now presented by StreamYard. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.